2, 3. Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. And if you're new here, I basically make a majority book videos, but occasionally I like to sprinkle in a little bit of randomness here or there. And the majority of the videos that I make that aren't book videos are just videos to help further knowledge on like finances and stuff like that. I've been wanting to do a tag video, but I could never find either like the right questions, basically questions that I feel like I could answer. And then I came up on Steph's video and I looked at the questions and I was like, yeah, I could definitely make a video answering all these questions, no problem. So usually you can tell a person's taste based on the books that they read, the books that they recommend. So all in all, I'm hoping to find some book friends or a bookmate, basically someone that shares the same taste as I do and I can make recommendations to, or they can make recommendations to me, and basically we just become book friends. So if you feel like you have similar taste to me, please don't be shy, hit me up, let me know. Let's talk. We're gonna go ahead and start off with question number 1, which is a book that you tell people is your favorite. I would say Game Set Match. And this is a book that I read a while ago, but it was one of the books that made me fall back in love with reading. I remember I had a friend that really loved to read, and I went to her house and she had this book on her bookshelf. I read it. I didn't buy the physical copy, but I just went ahead and bought it on Kindle. It was that good. To this day, I will never forget that book. It's basically a second chance romance between a well-known tennis player and a photographer who met when they were much younger and have a very deep history. They basically reconnect, but Izzy is very apprehensive about dealing with him at all because of his playboy status. So if you don't like spice, I definitely do not recommend that you read this book, but overall it's my favorite. I thought it was a really good book. A book that is your guilty pleasure. So basically any mafia romance. But if I had to pick one, I would say Monster in His Eyes. And it's a 3-book series. I love this book. I love the entire series. So it's about Clarissa and Ignacio. The chemistry between the two was evident from the get-go. The pull, the draw, like you can tell that they were attracted to each other. It was unmatched. And Nas is used to getting whatever he wants. And to be honest with you, Chrissy is fine with giving him whatever he wants because she cannot get enough of him. So it's age gap, dark romance, lust, love, and very spicy. So again, if you don't like spice, this is definitely not the book for you. So a book that everyone loved that I did not would be The People That We Meet on Vacation. I just thought this book was very boring. It had a lot of nothing. It just was words on a piece of paper. To be honest, it's not that it didn't make sense, it's just there was not enough dialogue for me and just too much writing. A lot of things was repetitive that I felt like did not have to be said, did not have to be said again, and overall I just didn't like the writing style or the characters. Question number 4, a book that I read the fastest, I would say, I'm pretty sure it's The Sweetest Obsession by Daniel Laurie. I don't know, from the beginning of the book, like you felt the tension between the characters. Even though Elena didn't necessarily like Nico, so there was still a lot of tension, a lot of sexual tension from the get-go. This one is mafia romance, arranged marriage, and enemies to lovers. Question number 5, a book that deserves more hype. I would say, which one was it? Ooh, The Sweetest Addiction by J. Daniels. I read that book in 2014 and I think it needs to be recycled and it needs all the hype it can get in today's day and age, in the age of TikTok, in the age of Bookstagram, in the age of BookTube, because I absolutely love that book. That book, in my opinion, has absolutely no flaws. It's about Dylan and Reese. They meet at Dylan's ex-boyfriend's wedding, and what was supposed to just be a one-night stand turned into a lot more because Reese was determined that he was not going to let her get away from him. So I don't remember exactly what happened, but he ends up, I guess, finding out she has a bakery, or he ends up at her bakery some way, somehow, and sparks continue to fly. I don't know if they had like a benefits to romance type of relationship or if they had like an actual relationship, but it was a very cute book, also spicy. So if you don't like spice, don't read it. I don't think it was that spicy though. Maybe 3 4 on a level, on a scale of 5, with 5 being the spiciest. If you've read this book, leave a comment down below, because I'm determined that barely anyone has read this book, even though there's a ton load of comments and reviews on Amazon and Goodreads. I just need like an actual person to like tell me that they like this book as well. Tell me personally that they like this book, so that I know that I'm not just like over exaggerating. Let me know. Comment down below. Question number 6, a book that is becoming a movie. So I'm gonna do 2. The first one is Where the Crawdad Sings. So this book is actually a movie already, came out last year, and I read the book before I watched the movie because I did not want to be tainted by the disasters that movies usually are, especially when they're adaptation of a book. I wanted to read the book first, get an idea of what the book is about, and form my own opinion, and then watch the movie so that I don't have to go back to the book, because I feel like the book always gives more details, and then when you're watching a movie you get a better context, you get a better idea. So I will say that there were details missing from the book, from the movie, but overall I think it was a really good book, a really good movie. They did good. And the next one is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. So I don't know if it's official yet, but I've heard that it's supposed to be a series on Netflix. If not a series, then maybe a movie. I'm not sure. But this is supposed to eventually end up in motion pictures. Question number 7, a book that I have reread the most. I'm going to be 100% honest with you guys. I'm not the type of person that really rereads books. I just feel like once I read it, that's it, that's enough. It's kind of like me watching a movie. Once I watch a movie, I really don't need to rewatch it unless it's a really good movie. And I will say I have rewatched a few movies because they were really good, but when I rewatch it, I'm not really as into it as I was the first time. So that's what I'm afraid of when I reread a book. I feel like I'm not going to be as interested, and my initial thoughts of it is going to be so tainted, and I'm gonna realize, well, this was not actually a 4-star book. Maybe it was like a 3.5, 3-star book. But anyways, but I did reread a book, and it was called The Darkest Temptation by Daniel Laurie. And the only reason I reread it was because I read the 3rd book first, and then I went back and I read the 1st book and I read the 2nd book, and I figured I read the first 2, why not just complete the series and read the 3rd one again. So I went ahead and reread the 3rd one, and I still thought the same thing I thought about it. Because I had read it, I think, about 6 months prior, so it was kind of it was kind of new-ish. I kind of knew what was gonna happen, but at the same time I didn't remember everything, every detail. So it was still solid, and I really do need to start rereading books, starting with The Sweetest Obsession, The Sweetest Addiction, and Monster in His Eyes. I have to reread those books because doing this tag has made me realize, like, you need to double back, because these were actually really good books. I think when you're in a reading slump, rereading books might be a good idea. Question number 8, a book in a genre that you typically do not read. So I have 3 of these. The first one is this series, the Avatar series, A Court of Thorn and Roses. I read it, and I'm usually not a fantasy person, but I knew it had a little splash of romance, so I was just like, you know what, let me check it out, let me see if I like it. And I absolutely love it, and I will never like disregard another fantasy book ever again, because these books are very well written. The next book is, well, I'll just do these 2 together. The next one was Where the Crawdads Sing and The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. So I'm not like a literary fiction type of girl. I'm not a historical fiction type of person. I always think that they're going to be a snooze fest. But I read these and I absolutely love them. And I'm looking forward to reading other books that are similar. I just have to find the right book. If you want a more in-depth or a thought dump video, I did make a video with these 3 books. And it is called Books That I Read Outside of My Comfort Zone. I'm going to put the picture here, and you guys can go ahead and check that video out to see a in-depth review of what I thought about these books. So question number 9 is a book that you think deserves all the hype that it gets, and I will say we're gonna go back to this one, A Court of Thorn and Roses. I don't know if everyone knows about this book, but if you don't, definitely check it out. Like I said before, I'm not a fantasy type of person, but when you add in a dash of romance, a little splash, you know, I love this book. And I feel like the romance aspect wasn't overwhelming in the book, and the fantasy aspect wasn't, like, it's all fantasy, but at the same time, nothing is more overpowered. I think it's a really good equal balance. And I never thought that I would like this book because the initial main male character was not who ended up being the love interest in the end, and I did not like that, because you meet that first male character and you just fall in love with him and you think he's gonna be the one, but then somebody else comes in and swoops the girl up. But Tamlin can kick rocks and Reese can bend me over any day. Question number 10, a book that you would recommend if asked for a recommendation. So I'm the type of person, if you're gonna ask for a recommendation, I want to know the type of books that you like. If you're trying to try something new, then that's different, but I don't want to recommend something that, let's say, is spicy and you don't like spice. You get what I'm saying? But if I had to make like a generalized recommendation, something that I feel like anybody could like, not love but like, I would go with Love in Other Words. In my opinion, you'd have to be a pretty picky person to not like this book, which is totally fine because not everybody has the same taste, not everybody likes the same books, but this is a good book if you're just looking for like a cutesy, sweet, quick romance. So number 11, a book that has your favorite character. Let's talk about Daniel. Okay, first of all, he has a pet goat. Not his goat, but he's taking care of pet goats. That's one. He has my heart, and I don't know why. I don't know why I truly felt his emotions in this book. Like, you could really tell that he was just absolutely in love with Alexis, and he would do anything for her. Like, he was the sweetest guy and my favorite book boyfriend. Number 12, a book that you would live in. We're gonna go with Magnolia Parks. It's always gonna be Magnolia Parks. I want to be her best friend because, one, I feel like she needs a solid person in her life, someone who's going to be honest with her, someone who's not going to betray her, someone who is able to tell her the truth, not necessarily hurting her feelings, someone who can help her process the situation that she has going on with BJ, like truly process it. And two, despite all the angst, all the indecisiveness, all the drama, she seems like a truly genuinely good person, a sweetheart. She seems like the type of person who would literally take her clothes off of your back and give it to you if she knows that you really need it. And I love her for that. So next we have a book that I thought that I would have hated but ended up really loving. We're gonna go back to The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I've said it before, I'm not really too into historical romances. I just thought that I wouldn't enjoy this book. It's not something that I would gravitate to. It's not something that I would reach for if I was in the bookstore. But I found myself really into this story, and I don't know why. It was just a really good story. It was told very well. It was written very well. It's basically about Evelyn Hugo and her 7 marriages, what she gained from them, how she was able to grow her fame, and how those marriages ended. Also talks about how she met her best friend who ended up being the love of her life, and how they were able to overcome the obstacles that they had to face living in those times. There's also a plot twist at the end that I definitely was not expecting, but it definitely made it worth the wait. For this one, I'm also going to be just quickly mentioning Magnolia Parks as well. I don't like books that do not have happily ever after. I do not like books that are that has cheating in them. I don't like books that has a lot of angst. And I read reviews, I watched people's videos about this book before I even bought it, and I knew it was going to be traumatic, but I still went ahead and picked it up because, you know, just had to figure it out for myself. I wanted to go through the trauma because apparently I live for drama. That rhymes. But yeah, I didn't think that I was gonna like this book, but ended up really loving it. So number 14, a book that made you cry. I'm gonna say The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. It didn't make me cry to the point where I was boo crying and tears were running down my eyes, but it almost made me cry. There were some sad parts and I felt like I was reading a tragedy. There were so many triggers in this book. And the last question number 15, a book that you could read for the first time. I'm definitely going to say Sweet Addiction. I wanted to reread that book as if I was going to read it, as if I was reading it again for the first time. Like I just wanted to read it over and over again, but I knew each time I read it I would not get the same experience, so I never reread it. And that's gonna change because I read this book in like 2014, and that's how I know it was a good book, because I still remember to this day. Still definitely a book that I'm like, yeah. But I'm definitely gonna reread it one of these days, probably before the end of this year. It definitely has to make it on my TBR. It's one of those books where I did not want it to end. So thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Just lets me know that you like the content. Also, you can subscribe. It's for the freezies. I'm trying to get my subscriber count up, but also when you subscribe, especially after watching a certain video, YouTube lets me know that the subscriber subscribed based on that video, and that also lets me know that you like the content and you want to see more of it. And once you subscribe, we are bookmates for life. So make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you guys for watching. Peace out, and I'll catch you in the next one.